founding father, Dr. Benjamin Rush, made many contributions to this great country. A pioneer in the study and treatment of mental illness, he was one of the leading physicians of his time. Today, for a taste of history, we examine the life of Dr. Benjamin Rush, father of American psychiatry. In his honor, we make a vol au vent de fruits de mer in a very unique bechamel. I also show you how to make fried sweetbread as well as Leek and Crimini mushroom ragu. And for dessert, a very unique apple tart. You can bet our meal prepared today for Dr. Benjamin Rush is not only sophisticated, but a taste of history. The menu today in honor of Dr. Benjamin Rush could be served in any French restaurant anywhere in the world. To start off, we're going to do a riz de veau. And a riz de veau is a complicated dish because it has to be blanched first, so there's a lot of work involved. A riz de veau comes from the calf and the neck, and basically it looks like that in a raw stage. It is absolutely delicious. So all you want to do, I have some water boiling, water, middle salt, onion, bay leaf, a little bit more salt. You want to have a slow cooking process. You don't want to rush it. Once it firms up and it's ready, then you let it get cool in the stock. Sweetbread always gets poached first and then later taken off the skin or the membranes, either way, for many other dishes. I have an ugly fish here. Nobody really knows how many hundreds of years this fish been around. Some people say it's prehistoric. Interesting about this fish, it's normally a byproduct that when people dig for scallops, he hangs there because he lays underground. But he's not a bottom feeder. He only eats little fish. That's why he has this big mouth. In my days in Europe, I cooked enough monkfish. And we would take the head and make a stock out of it. But for today's recipe, all I need is the fillet. What's nice about a monkfish, for people who are not familiar, there's no bones in it. No bones at all. And it's just really good eating. It's a spectacular seafood because it stays so firm, it's almost impossible to overcook it. That makes it beautiful. Cut it in chunks like so. By the time it took me to clean the monkfish, guess what? My riz de veau are done, and look how beautiful they are. You want to put them in any kind of a container. Most important part is that you don't let the skin get dry. I'm just putting some of the poaching stock in the bowl. Let it get cool in the stock. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to deep fry it. So basically, we're going to cut it, bread it, and fry it. You got to envision that the Delaware, which is an extension of the ocean, was not polluted. So everything you see in front of me here would have been accessible to Dr. Benjamin Rush's chefs any day. The scallops are kind of on the large side, so I'm going to just cut them in half. You like to make sure that your seafood stays in the same width or the same dimension, so that if you cook it, they all cook together nicely. This dish is so delicate that obviously I would use nothing else but beautiful, fresh butter, like I'm using today, and plenty of it. Then I have shallots I already chopped. Sweat the shallots, no color, and get the sweetness from the shallot coming through, which is happening right now. I'm going to put a little cognac, and again, real good cognac, not brandy. I'm ready to insert the seafood now. Monkfish first, then goes the shrimp, and then the scallops, and the oysters. We're going to let that kind of nice little saute, not overcooking it. Little cream. Ooh, awesome. Curry, literally a pinch for a big recipe like that. Chives. There we go. A little bit of bechamel. Like I say, you don't have to. You could also just put a little more cream in it and reduce it down. And the dish is ready. Let me take it to the landing. The flavor out of this pot between the cognac, a little bit of the curry, just absolutely spectacular is really the word. So the crab meat comes last moment. Remember, it's already all cooked. And I want to just fold it under the rest of the seafood. For the show, there would not be enough time to actually do the vol au vent, but basically all it is pafto. You lay it up, and you then, once it's baked, you push the inside down. You might think this is a big vol au vent. You're correct, because again, the 18th century, this would have been served 1 or 2 on the table. Basically, all I want to do is scoop the beautiful seafood right into the vol au vent. Doesn't get better than that. Beautiful. Today I have the luxury of having some chai flowers here and just a little bit curry over it. Voila, Dr. Benjamin Rush, your vol au vent is served. Founding father, Dr. Benjamin Rush, made many contributions to this great country.
Born in 1745 in Byberry, Pennsylvania, Dr. Benjamin Rush would soon become a prominent figure in Philadelphia because of his medical work with the poor and his popularity as a teacher.
Benjamin Rush holds a unique position as the only medical physician to sign the Declaration of Independence. He also went on to be a Surgeon General during the American Revolution.
Rush was one of the only physicians to remain in Philadelphia during the yellow fever epidemic of 1793, treating hundreds of patients a day with his controversial treatment of purging and bloodletting.
We now know that bloodletting was not beneficial, but he absolutely believed that his treatment method was the only effective method.
Disputes with his colleagues over these treatments led Rush to focus his commitments on a new form of medical care at the Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia.
One of the areas that he was most interested in and that the hospital was really looking for guidance with were the mentally ill.
The inflictions of the mind must be treated as any other medical condition. These are not people who have been overcome by evil. With proper care, with proper treatment, with compassion, we can find a way to cure them, or at least to ease their suffering.
Rush becomes the father of American psychiatry because he really is a huge advocate for those patients who were here, who were suffering and needed a voice.
Rush cemented his legacy by publishing the first American textbook on mental illness, and his dedication to the moral and ethical treatment of people mirrored many other aspects of his life.
He was an abolitionist. He also advocated for education for women and really working, I think, for the betterment of people overall.
Next course, we started early on because we talked about the sweetbread. The sweetbread is cooked completely. After it's chilled down, then you slice it like so. Pull it off the membrane like this when you make it for different recipes. But for today, we're just doing it like that. Now it's time to show you how to bread a sweetbread. Now, if you want to put salt and pepper on cooked meat, it's difficult because it doesn't maintain itself very well on it. The best way to do it is you season your flour. And also, it's more consistent if you make it this way. So basically, you take salt, and for this particular recipe, just white pepper. Mix it up together, like you see me doing here. And now, when you put your sweetbread in, it really is seasoned, and the flavor is right there. I just have some egg wash, very simple. What makes my sweetbreads so delicious is that I use our Saliland bread that we make every day at the City Tavern. It's a really, really, really delicious dish. You can eat it with nothing, lemon slices, or you just take it with a sauce remoulade. In the 18th century, it was one of many dishes that were on the table. I have my oil already on the fire now. In the 18th century, they would have used lard. Today, we use oil. But if you want to make sure that your oil is warm enough, the trick is real easy. You put a little breadcrumb into it, and obviously, it is ready to roll. So now all you gotta do is give them golden brown. It goes quick because the Saliland. Now you must remember, when I plate one dish, there would have been maybe another 15 or 20 equal dishes or thereabout on the table. Because it had to serve a lot of people. No lemons grow in this country until the Victorian days. So every single lemon that was served at Dr. Benjamin Rush's home would have came from Seville, Spain. Came right into the harbor of Philadelphia. So you have lime and lemons. Limes would come from the islands, but lemon only came from Spain. So here we go. Just lay it right over under the ducks, if you will. Beautiful. And all we're gonna do is put a good amount of fresh chopped parsley over that. What better dish to go along with the sweetbreads than my stewed leeks and Crimini mushrooms to die for. Founding father, Dr. Benjamin Rush, was the signer of the Declaration of Independence, Surgeon General during the Revolutionary War, and a strong opponent against slavery and the death penalty. However, Rush was foremost a healer at heart and spent much of his time right here at the Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia.
Founded in 1751, the nation's first hospital was established to help care for the sick, poor, and insane of Philadelphia.
In this room, we have over 13,000 volumes, and they date anywhere between 1483 and about 1930.
Unbelievable. What a beautiful feel it has. It feels like stepping right back into history.
It does, and this is the actual collection that the physicians amassed. Even our oldest volumes, dating to 1483, are still able to be used by researchers today.
That's very impressive. So Stacy, what you got here to show me?
This is Dr. Rush on the yellow fever. What's interesting is that Rush is such an integral part of the Pennsylvania Hospital, yet the Pennsylvania Hospital did not allow yellow fever patients.
It was a bad time if you had yellow fever in 1793.
It was scary for the people and it was scary for the physicians because their typical treatments were not working.
Well, Stacy, I see you have a recipe here that I actually like as an innkeeper because it recommends that you occasionally drink porter, ale, or old wine.
This was actually a prescription that Dr. Rush himself had written for a patient here. So he references some of his harsher medicines in the beginning, but then ends with being able to have a nice drink as well.
That's a good thing. Dr. Benjamin Rush was known as a great teacher, so it's so appropriate that we here in the surgical amphitheater.
This is a great space. Our surgical amphitheater was in use between 1804 and 1868. So all the space around here and up at the balcony were all used by medical students to observe both surgeries and also anatomy classes here at the hospital.
The acoustics are great in this room, actually spectacular.
Walter, what I have here is Rush's handwritten introduction to his seminal work in 1812, Observations on Diseases of the Mind. We have a variety of Rush materials related to his care of the mentally here at the hospital because he was so important in changing the mentality around how people saw mental health patients during his time period.
Dr. Rush was then revolutionizing the care of the mentally ill.
He did, absolutely, and we're glad that he was able to start that here.
My duchy is getting hot. I'm going to put together the leek and Crimini mushroom stew real quick. That is a fantastic accompaniment to my sweetbreads. Here we go. Duchy is hot. Put in the schmaltz, onion, bacon. Take a little bit back off the fire, just a tad. Okay. I got the leeks right here. Very important when you serve in leeks, you want to make sure that you open it good because leeks have a tendency to be full of sand. The best way to do it is you take the whole leek and just open it down the middle. And you can leave the ends on it and just literally wash it. Let me show you. And go into each one of the things. And the reason I recommend that you leave the bottom, otherwise they flop all over the place. So the little thing will hold it together, and then you wash it like that. See? Here we go. We're gonna just chop the same size. Some people will tell you not to put the green in it. I like the green. The green has a tendency to could be bitter, not always bitter, but it's just more color, more flavor to it. Here we go. Now it needs to go in my pot. Back on the fire. I had a little white one, but you can also use water or stock just a little bit to steam it up nicely. I get asked often why I like to use Crimini. Crimini for certain recipes are better because they're firm. So they're firmer, they're harder than a regular button mushroom. Salt, good amount of pepper over it, and more white wine. Last but not least, the cream. We tried it. What a beautiful veg. Parsley on top. Dr. Benjamin Rush, it was an honor making this meal for you, even so in spirit. You've done so much for 18th century America. The least I could do is pay you back with this fantastic meal. But we're not done. I'm making a very spectacular apple tart to finish up this one-of-a-kind meal.
Philadelphia is the birthplace of American medicine. We were home to the first medical school and the first hospital in what was then the colonies. The College of Physicians is the oldest medical professional society in continuous operation in the United States. Benjamin Rush was one of the founders along with about 23 other gentlemen. It was started in 1787 as really a way for all the physicians in the community to come together on a neutral ground to share ideas.
And it's so good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So you got to help me and explain me this mysterious box, because to me it looks like I'm ready for a party. My gin, my vodka, my vermouth in there.
You're not terribly far off. This is Benjamin Rush's medicine chest. This is what he would actually take when he made house calls to his patients. And what he would be able to do is diagnose the patient, prescribe a medication, but then he would make the medication right there in front of the patient.
Custom made per case.
He had scales. First of all, he would measure very carefully. There's liquids, there's powders, there's pills. You could pound the powders finer or take solid medicines and pound them with a mortar and pestle. You could mix them again with the alcohol, commonplace things such as brandy and spirits. Dr. Rush was also the medical advisor for the Lewis and Clark expedition. So he provided them with advice, but he also provided them with physical medicines. The Rush Thunderclap pills were used, and they also contained a high degree of mercury. And they were actually able, nowadays, to trace the path of Lewis and Clark by tracing the remnants of these pills. Yeah.
But it kept them gone, literally.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it kept going and going and going. Exactly. Yep.
Diana,
Hello, Chef.
fantastic. You know, I just finished eating all this deep-fried sweetbread, which is delicious, but guess what? I can't wait for our apple tart.
Well, let's get started. It's a good thing I'm here. We're going to start with the traditional pâte brisée, just a mildly sweet crust. So we have here 5 cups of AP flour that's been aerated nicely. To it, we will add 4 teaspoons of sugar. That's it. 2 teaspoons of salt. And just kind of get that in there a little bit. To that, we will add 1 whole pound of cubed butter. Now, of course, we're making a large tart here, not your typical plate-sized
individual,
tart.
correct.
So we do need quite a bit of dough. You can use a fork, you could use a pastry cutter. I believe that the best tools are right here at the end of my arms.
Call your hands.
That's right. Cut this in just by squeezing it. Cold, cold butter, cold flour, cold everything.
You want to keep everything really, really chilled because you don't want the flours to burn or to break, as we call it in our technical terms. And I think a lot of people have trouble with making regular pie crust because of that.
You're absolutely right. Definitely.
And the other thing is, modern kitchen machines, many times also, you don't have to feel like you have with your hands.
That's exactly right. It really doesn't take too much effort to do it by hand. I highly recommend it.
Okay, so we are just about there. You can see I still have a couple larger little pieces of butter there, but most of it is that coarse wet sand look, and that is exactly what you're looking for. Now we have our ice cold water, and I mean ice cold, just like we said. I have a cup in there, but we add it slowly so that we don't over moisten the dough. Perfect. Just a little bit.
Like you can always add, but you can take away.
That's exactly right.
Want to make sure the dough has the right consistency so you can later use a rolling pin.
Perfect. And I think that'll probably do it. So you can use that little bit of dry at the bottom of the bowl to make sure that you don't stick to the table. I have retrieved our dough from the refrigerator where it has been for about an hour to make sure it's good and cool and rested. So here we have it. As you can see, rectangle. This will make it far easier to get into our pan. So,
Now, guess what you have in your hand there?
I don't know, tell me.
It's an 18th century rolling pin that was on the inventory of the estate. So
That's incredible. A little flour on the top. You don't need too much. Okay. And we're just going to ease it out, keeping it in a square. So give it one roll each way, and then we're going to turn it. Spread out
so
the
you're
flour.
you're sizing it up already for the sheet pan, so it's much easier to work with.
Yes, if you had a small circle, you would be rolling all day before you could fit it into our half sheet pan. Excellent. Now, make sure, push the edge right over, get that excess off. And we will put this in the fridge, again, for 30 to 45 minutes, make sure it's nice and cold.
I'll take care of that for you right now.
Okay, here we are, our nice cold dough. That's perfect. You can see the lovely marbling of the butter. So the next part's fun. We get to sprinkle just a little bit of sugar, get a little base going, and we're gonna layer those apples over there that I have sliced nice and thin, and they are soaking in lemon water, of course, to keep them from browning too much. As you can see, these are very thin. These are less than 1/4 of an inch, and we're just gonna shingle them in. You can go as heavy or as light as you'd like. I like about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch gap between.
I don't like mine peeled.
That's right.
So
I like the little crunch of the peel
Absolutely.
also, and not to mention the way it looks when it's finished baking. You
Yep.
get the pretty color on the
it's
outside.
a pity when some of the recipes say peel it. I love my apples whenever I can get it not peeled.
Absolutely.
And any apple you can use. This happens to be Granny Smith that I think is the best for this recipe because it's a little tart.
Exactly.
And then all the sugar, the cinnamon, and the raisins will just complement the tartness of the apple. Looks so beautiful already, huh? Mm-hmm. That's what's nice about simplicity.
So now I have some butter melted over the fire. Just adding another element of flavor, and this is going to help the sugar and raisins stay in place on top of the apples. So I'm really dabbing it more than brushing it. But. So now we're going to dot it with just a couple raisins, and these I have soaked previously. So
What are you talking about, rum?
rum is a great option. Whiskey, brandy, whatever you got, or just water, that's okay too.
Never water.
Never water.
Taste the history.
So just gonna sprinkle a few. These are both white and dark raisins. Of course, it doesn't matter. Pick your
I want
preference.
to tell the people why we soak them because otherwise they burn real quick.
That's exactly right.
So the
Very
raisin-
important.
The raisin got to be soaked because the sugar is in there, and if you don't soak it, you'd have burnt raisin on top. Not too
Yes.
pleasant.
Not tasty at all. Okay, that looks good. And then I will do the sugar. If you will do the cinnamon.
Yep.
Beautiful. Get a little extra color in there. It's gonna smell really good when it's baking.
And the other thing is it doesn't take long to bake at all.
Okay, so we've just baked this 20 minutes. And as you can see, the raisins have just crisped up a little bit on top. The edges of the apples are beautifully golden.
But if you wouldn't have soaked them, they would have been burned by the time the thing.
That's exactly right. They would be inedible.
And you know, this would have been a dessert that could have been served almost all winter long. It's just simplicity and beautiful. It's so 18th century, you know.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dan, for showing me this simple, beautiful dessert, which complements the rich menu that I prepared for Dr. Benjamin Rush for a taste of history.